If you're not in great shape, or if you're a doctor working with a patient or a physical therapist working with a patient to get back into shape, possibly following an injury or an illness, or someone that just hasn't exercised in a long time, before you do serious, intense exercise, you may really need to do an overall fitness assessment, almost like a physical, except with an emphasis on functional fitness. So today we're going to show you how you do that sort of functional fitness assessment, and we're going to use Pun to work with me. Pun happens to be the reigning world champ for women. She has the fastest time for women in the world, which by coincidence happens to be exactly my time, 4:23. And one thing that shows you, as you can see, Pun and I are quite different. I'm about a foot taller than her and about twice her weight. But none of that matters when you use Global FastFit to evaluate functional fitness. Your age doesn't matter, your size doesn't matter, male or female, it all comes down to how quickly you can move through this series of 4 exercises. So we're going to show you, using Pun, how you would evaluate someone. Now, Pun happens to be in excellent shape, so she can do all these things easily. But I'm going to kind of show you the dialogue you'd engage in with someone that's not necessarily in excellent shape. So first of all, and you would combine this with a series of routine physical questions about alcohol intake, cigarette use, you do blood pressure, all the normal things you do in a physical evaluation. But here we're going to evaluate specifically functional fitness portion of this. First of the 4 exercises that we're going to break down is the squat. So this is a very simple exercise, and Pun will show you how she would normally do a squat when going through the routine. So go ahead and do a squat. Okay, so that is a normal regular squat, the way you're supposed to do them if you're doing the full routine. If Pun was someone that was recovering from injury or something like that, what you would do, you'd ask her, how low can you go? Is it comfortable? And they wouldn't do the full squat. You'd ask them to do it a little bit more slowly, maybe bend down a little bit. And then you'd say, okay, is this comfortable or not comfortable? Like, Pun, why don't you go like halfway down to where you were before? Okay, good. Okay, so for many people that hadn't exercised in a long time, that might really be as far or even a little bit higher there, and you'd say, okay, are you comfortable there? With the initial assessment, unlike the actual routine, with the initial assessment, you can go ahead and, the initial assessment, the point is not to get any kind of time. It in no way is competitive. Think of this as being more like a health exam. You're interacting with the patient, trying to find out what's comfortable for them, what's not uncomfortable. So at no point do you make them go beyond their comfort range. You're just trying to understand what is their comfort range. Now, the second exercise that we're going to evaluate here is the plank leg lift. So, Pun, if you could go ahead and do a regular leg lift the way as if you were doing the routine. You can see she assumes the plank position with her elbows there. Her body is straight. Then go ahead and do 1 leg lift. Okay, and note how high she gets there. Okay, now do the other leg. All right, so each one of these is 1 repetition. So in the normal routine, you do 30 repetitions, so it would be 1 on each side. If you're doing an evaluation though, now look how easily Pun holds that plank position. Most people would not even be able to get into that position in the first place. So you might just say, for someone that was just starting out, put your knees, a more modified position for someone that wasn't in good shape would just be to put their elbows on the ground here, have their knees resting on the ground, and then ask them how that feels. If they're already uncomfortable just at this position, then you have something you need to look in. And that's really what you're looking for. Is there some point in this process they become uncomfortable, and then you need to focus in on that and figure out if there's a problem, and if so, how to fix that problem. So if she was in this position, okay, then you might just say, and let's say that she was an older person or someone that hadn't exercised in a long time, maybe you don't ask her to get in the plank position at all. Maybe you simply say, can you lift a leg up, either one, from this position? So Pun, can you go ahead and lift either leg here? Okay. And then you might just say, okay, how does that feel? Is that comfortable for you? Or does that feel difficult or tight? Tell me how that feels. And go through the same process with each leg. Now, if she's in this position, I mean, the whole point of this is sometimes people surprise you. And sometimes people are in much better shape than they look. Maybe you ask her and she says, you know, I feel great this way. I feel just fine. Say, okay, can you assume the full plank position from this position? Okay, so Pun, go ahead and do that. And then you see if they can go into a normal plank with their knees off the ground. As if she was, okay, so now she's in a normal plank position. So let's say she did this and you say, okay, without even moving your legs now, how does this feel? Okay, and you know, and now a leg goes up, and so you just go through the process as if they're doing it, but you do it very slowly, interacting with the patient at each point to see how they feel about it. Are they comfortable? Not pressing them or even really encouraging them, simply asking them to go through the process. Okay, so that's number 2. Let's do next the push-up. Women really struggle with the push-up, and many men can't do push-ups. So this is an exercise you've got to be very careful about. You can probably start, you can have them lie flat down like Pun is right now, and then see, okay, can you lift yourself up while still, okay, into that full position. Now, I would only ask someone to do that if you thought that they were already in pretty decent shape, because a lot of people can't even get in that position. But Pun, go ahead and do a couple push-ups just like you normally would in the GFF routine. Okay, so Pun is one of the very, very few women, like 3 that we found thus far, that can do 30 continuous push-ups like that. Most women really struggle to do 1 or 2. So what we suggest as part of the evaluation is go ahead and do a modified push-up. Okay, so start with the knees on the ground and then go ahead and do a push-up from that position. Okay, most people can probably do this, okay, if they can't do a real push-up. So I would really normally start with a modified position. Now there may be some people, go ahead and stand up, Pun. There may be some people that you don't want to ask because you know right away that they're not in very good shape. But anyone can get in much better shape. It's all just a question of what's the starting point. So you may ask someone not to get down at all, but let's just say stand up against a wall and do a push off the wall. And that can be a substitute for the modified push-up, for someone that you don't even want to ask to do a modified push-up. So in that case, what you would do is simply stand against the wall, push against it. Can you push your body weight back and forth simply like that? If they can't do that, then you know you have a serious upper body deficiency strength problem. But if they can do that, you can start with that, move eventually to the modified push-ups, and the goal would be eventually to do real push-ups. Now the next thing is, and the final thing, is the run. So go ahead and get on the treadmill, Pun, and go ahead and start it up just like you were doing your normal routine run. And when you do the full routine, you go through these exercises first normally before you do the run. You go straight from one to the other. Now Pun's going to go ahead and start. Let's start at first of all, you'd go very, very slowly, like walking. And depending on what the person's background is and what they currently, look in terms of shape and your experience with them doing the first 3 exercises, maybe all you do is ask them to walk on the treadmill. But if they're doing well and they seem like they're in pretty good shape, maybe you ask them to speed it up a little bit. So Pun right now is going to go to, let's say, 6 or 7. And it should be fast enough that they're no longer walking, at this point they're jogging. And what you want to see here is at a fairly slow jog, what is their gait, what is their motion. So let's not go faster than, okay, that's good. So Pun's at 7.4 right now. She can go much faster, but for the purpose of this, one thing you want to tell people as you're evaluating the run is for everyone, and women have a particular inclination to cross their body when they're running. You want your arms and your hands to be moving in the same direction that you want your body to go. So you should be pumping your arms forward as you go. But that's not a big deal. The main thing you're just doing is seeing, is this comfortable for someone? At what point, as you gradually increase the speed, at what point do they seem to become uncomfortable? And then you want to immediately stop. So let's go ahead and turn this off. And once you stop it, you slow down gradually, then you can, just pay attention to the person. How heavily are they breathing at that point? Do they seem winded by a small amount of exertion? And I'd note that it's much, much harder to do the running portion after they've done the first 3 exercises than simply stepping directly onto a treadmill. So those are basically the 4 exercises. After the person's complete, you'd ask them how they're feeling. Pun and I are much more similar height now. You'd ask them how they're feeling. Does anything hurt? And in particular, you'd follow up with them the next day to find out, what is sore, how they feel, because a lot of these things don't really take effect until the next day. So those are the 4 exercises, and that's the general Global Fast Fit functional assessment. Thank you, Pun. Thank you very much.